John Gielgud directed her Broadway debut in 1947. She shared stages with such long-ago legends as Judith Anderson and Katharine Cornell. She even wrote her memoirs 25 years ago. And yet, it's hard to imagine a more modern, a more daring actress in the theater today. Welcome to Women in Theater. I'm Linda Weiner, theater critic and arts columnist of Newsday. And our guest today is Marian Seldes, who, after an amazing life in the theater, is having an even more extraordinary third act. A late bloomer?
I don't know. Yes. Well, I don't know. It seemed to me it took me a long time to get good parts, and honestly, that's what I think leads you to blooming, to having a responsibility, to belonging to the play in such a way that it is, people remember it. It took me a long time, but all during that long time I was with people like the names you just said, and I wouldn't give up a moment. I mean, the Lunts, for instance, Alfred Lunt directed Undine, and just to be even around with Audrey Hepburn.
Yes.
And just to be around them. I've always felt it's a privilege to be at the rehearsal.
No, I think it's a joke when people say you're a late bloomer. I was joking with you. No, I think that it's been such an amazing life, and then to have it just take a quantum leap, and right around the time of, I believe it would have been, would you say it was Edward Albee and the Three Tall Women, when you start to see?
Even A Delicate Balance. You see,
sure.
Even that. I think...
Where you won a Tony Award.
Well,
yes.
And it was a wonderful part. And then something that I think changed things for me was Tina Howe's Painting Churches.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there were only 3 characters, and that's what you remember. And this Fanny Church was an amazing character. And it gave me confidence. It gave me a strength to play something wonderful.
That was mid-'80s, 80s, something.
Yes.
Yeah, and you played the mother.
I played the mother.
And a waspy
Very
woman.
waspy Boston woman.
And your mother, you have this fascinating genealogy because
Mother and father.
Your mother and father are...
My mother was indeed a New York, what would you call it? What do you call it when someone is socially acceptable? And she
not my family, I think is what you call it, yes.
And she married my father, and I think my grandmother, her mother, was appalled because he was Jewish. And to me, to be Jewish is to be the best thing in the world. I couldn't understand her. I mean, you have to grow up to understand how people's choices about what is right and what is wonderful or amusing or entertaining comes from their background. But in the end, everyone in the family loved my father more than anyone else.
But you had this gorgeous childhood and upbringing.
Heavenly.
It sounds absolutely utopian that the Upper East Side, Dalton School, played an angel at 7.
You know everything. Well, you use such a wonderful word, utopian. My father grew up on a utopian community that his father created.
In New Jersey, yes?
Yes, in New Jersey, in Alliance, New Jersey. And I've always thought that the theater can be a kind of utopia. You can't change the world, you can't change everyone, but if you can make the project, help make the project that you are working on in the theater into something strong and good, where everyone is able to be his or herself all the time, freely and honestly, then you live a great life, and that's the life I've had.
Now, your memoirs were, the subtitle is A Theater Life.
A Theater Life.
And this was 25 years ago.
Yes, more, I think.
Did you have any, I mean, are you going to do Chapter 2? Are you going to do a sequel? Because
I'd like to.
Yeah.
I'd like to. What was interesting about writing about my life and myself was that I thought, as I'm expressing now, how wonderful everything was. And as I began to write the truth, I saw how hungry I was. Not ambitious, but it just was so important to me to give the theater what it was giving to me. And I remember one time in my 40s, I thought, why doesn't it happen? I'm not talking about fame or success. I'm talking about what has happened. A wonderful place to be and to give and teaching was part of that too, teaching at Juilliard. I've been so lucky. Lucky isn't a big enough word. Fortunate, I think, is a better word.
Your childhood being at the Upper East Side and then having literary salons in your home. Your father was...
My father was Gilbert Seldes, and he was an editor of The Dial, and he wrote The Seven Lively Arts. And he told me, he said, when you think of your career, you'll think of the people that you have worked with and known. And if I say to you in a sort of casual way that my father knew Picasso and James Joyce and E.E. Cummings, and Alan Tate, and I don't know who else, you think, well, come on, but it's true.
And you had F. Scott Fitzgerald in
Yes, yes, and a man called Bunny, who was Edmund Wilson. Yes.
And is it true that Robert Edmund Jones, the designer, lived in your building and you went for little girl acting tips? What was this?
Well, no, see, I never thought of myself as a little girl. I was about 16.
Uh-huh.
And
already 6 foot tall?
Oh, yes, or whatever. I think I've shrunk. And he lived downstairs in this old building on 57th Street near Lexington Avenue. And my father said, I think you should talk to Bobby Jones. I mean, they all had nicknames. And I went down one evening to his marvelous apartment and drank a little liqueur. I don't know what it was. Liqueur and a little piece of cake. I had my best dress. And he did talk to me about the theater. He told me about seeing Bernhardt, and he'd sort of act how she took her bracelets and wrote them in a Greek play. I mean, it was all heavenly. And about 2 days later, he called and he said, you better come down here again. And he showed me the other side of the theater, all the humiliations, the difficulties, the failures. What a lesson. What a lesson. And he was so, everyone calls people charismatic now, but this man, who was a designer and an artist, was so exciting, as most theater people are to me. If I couldn't be in the theater, I would just be someone who lived to go to the theater. I love it so.
I've spent some of the most enjoyable part of my career trying to describe your acting. You know, I was going back in my clips, and I'm thinking, you know, there was one outrageously unflappable, and then there was, but I think, can you describe
what I do?
Yeah.
No, I don't think I'm in control of it. Mm-hmm. I prepare as much as I can, and then it happens. And it will sound childish to you, but I simply believe that from the moment you're in the part, that's what's happening. And that every second on the stage is alive with, like what we're doing now. We don't know what's coming next.
Okay.
Well, the fact that I might know the script, that's not it. It's the life, it's the existence that a playwright gives you. It's as if someone wrote a life for you.
Now, this season you are in something called Beckett/Albee.
Yes.
Which is three
Becketts, and I do 2 of them. I do a play called Not I, and a play called Footfalls. Mm-hmm. And we're coming to the name of Brian Murray,
yes,
who is playing a piece of a monologue. And then that's the Beckett's first act. And the second act is Edward Albee's Counting the Ways, and Brian and I play that together.
And Counting the Ways is new.
Well, it's hardly ever been done, but all the plays that you'll see were written in the 70s.
Oh, this is...
They could have been written in the 50s. They could have been written yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Not a word has changed. Well, of course, not a word has changed. But I mean, they're timeless.
Now, you have been, this would be then your 4th Albee play?
Well, I started with The Delicate Balance.
Yes, the original.
And then, yes, and then I was a standby for Irene Worth in Tiny Alice, and I played it. And of course, it was terribly exciting to play it, and as you said, Gielgud directed the first play I was ever in, Medea. Well, he was the star of Tiny Alice.
Did you see the recent revival
Yes,
of Tiny Alice?
fascinating.
Now, I didn't see the original, but I went back and read about it, and there seemed to be such terrible confusion about what this play was about.
Well, I think when you have a major, smashing, important success like Virginia Woolf and the amazing Zoo story, and then they're out to get you, you know, what does it mean? What is it? And lately, a lot of people ask me what Edward's plays mean, and I think I have no right to say. And so I say, they mean what you take from them. Whatever you take from it is what he wants to be in a dialogue with you. Tiny Alice, well, it sounds funny, but every play I've done, I've understood. But I understand it in this other person that I've described to you. She does it.
She does it.
Yeah.
She does it.
Yeah.
You and Brian Murray were also in the play about the baby,
Yes.
which I
Lovely
love.
play.
And is it peculiar now that suddenly you have a dancing partner, don't you, out there? The two
Well,
of you are this
I
hot
can't-
duo.
I just can't tell you what it's like to work with him. He's so giving and he's so intelligent, and you don't see intelligence in acting. That's not what you go to the theater for. But Brian can take a script and know every moment of it. He knows my part much better than I do. And I just look at him and I know what to do. He's amazing. A partner.
It must be rare to find that kind of understanding
Well,
with
I've
another
been
actor.
so lucky. When wonderful things happen, you think, well, that's this wonderful thing. Like Albee, I thought, well, I have done a play by Edward Albee. Well, I stopped after Tiny Alice, but then Three Tall Women was a perfect time in my life.
And also in Edward's. If you
I think so.
This was really, before Three Tall Women, he was considered yesterday's news.
But I don't understand
I don't
that.
understand it either.
No.
But until Three Tall Women, when he received his
The Pulitzer?
third Pulitzer Prize,
Yes.
and you played
The middle-aged woman,
the middle-aged
B.
tall woman,
Yeah.
and then later on you played the older.
Yes, and we went on a tour all across America, and which I had also done with Medea, the Gielgud-directed play. And it's so that you not only have this marvelous thing to do, but you have America on the ground. You don't fly around mostly. You go on a train, and it's theater's given me that too. The whole.
There was something that you said while you were playing the older woman, and I read that you said that before you go on, you sit very still and think brittle thoughts. I love that. What do you mean, brittle thoughts?
Brittle?
Brittle thoughts.
That's wonderful. Well, she's 91 years old, and she's in an odd way calcified. She is what she is, and she says things that are shocking. I mean, if I said them to you here, we'd lose the audience. But no. And she's,
Or get them.
Oh, maybe get them.
Right.
And she's so what she is. And yes, she's in her 90s, but she's strong. And you don't know what's going to happen in the play. You don't know. Some terrible thing might happen to her. And then here are the other parts of her life enacted by the other characters. And she is holding on. She's holding on to life. Well, if you have that to do in a part, just knowing that, and living it, and remembering it, and loving it, and hating it, it's all there. It's all there. It's a good word.
Yes, it is, brittle thoughts. I didn't realize until recently that you studied with Martha Graham, that you wanted to be a dancer, because so much of your acting, your presence, is so physical.
Yes.
You wanted to be a modern dancer?
First, I wanted to be a ballet dancer.
Yeah.
And I luckily told myself, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I don't regret a minute in a dance studio to be. And then when I went to the neighborhood playhouse, the acting school, marvelous school, where Sanford Meisner was my teacher, there was Martha Graham. And I'd been to see her many times, and I thought she was a brilliant, brilliant artist. And she was my teacher.
That's, and that sense, that psychological gesture that I believe was a phrase that Michael Chekhov used in that book that you reviewed.
Yes.
But that psychological gesture, which I believe in, if I can replay in my mind so many of your performances, it seems that so much of what you do is rooted in the physicality of that character.
Absolutely, as is everyone's. And it's often left out in the theater. People walk in a costume, and the costume is a costume. Well, it's what you have, it's how you move. And of course, there are a lot of things you can't do. If you look the way I do, you look the way I do, and you can't say I'm a tiny, adorable. But the use of the body and what the body says about the person, even if it says nothing. One of the plays I'm doing now, Not I have no body.
It's just your mouth.
No, capital B, body. And it's just her mouth.
Yeah.
Well, there's no. But then in Footfalls, it's all her body. It's all her body. It's aching, aching life to pace up and down, and I don't know what she wants most, a release or to keep pacing up and down. I don't know. I rely a lot on a director to tell me if it's more than it should be. But I honestly feel that an actor should be fully, absolutely, your feet, your fingers, everything. It isn't just coming on and saying words. It's becoming something.
Were you always so funny?
A lot of people thought not. I think I was a so serious young actress and so on. And when I'd make people laugh, they'd be very startled. I think, yes, I think I've always looked for the comedy. I remember when I was very young I'd read it many times, but seeing Hamlet for the first time and hearing myself laugh. Well, it's full of jokes. I didn't know that. Everything is full of jokes. Judith Anderson used to get laughs in Medea, and it was a devastating performance, this murderess. I didn't think she was a murderess. I thought she was a mother who'd been treated wrongly. But what I mean is you have to love everything about the character you're doing, or accept everything about the character you're doing.
When we talk about your third act, certainly a lot of it personally had to do with Garson Kanin.
Everything, everything. If I could have dreamed of someone who would encompass everything in my theater life and also being with him, it would end up to be Garson Kanin. And there's someone who's so funny and witty, and when I first knew him, when I was in his play, A Gift of Time, I thought, what will I ever say to him if he walks over here? Because you think brilliant wits, just a brilliant wits all the time. No, a very deep person, very thoughtful, serious, deep person, and so in love with the theater, more than I was, if I can believe that I'm saying it. Loved it, loved it.
How fortunate he was to have two women in his life, to have gone from having Ruth Gordon, and then after she died, he called you one day and you went to dinner and you never went home?
No. He was in a bad state, a very bad state. And I thought, I can't leave him here. I can't leave him in this apartment. I knew in the morning some people would come that would...
Oh, it sounded so romantic when you said it.
Yeah. Oh, but it is romantic because think of not even considering. I mean, I just stayed there, and I stayed there the rest of his life. Just wonderful, wonderful. And I think that having, how to say this, but knowing Ruth and loving her and adoring her acting, which was, I mean, you couldn't find two more different actresses, could you? But the idea that he would have a judgment of me on any level near Ruth, I first thought he was joking. I mean, I couldn't believe it, that he would...
I read an interview with you shortly towards the end of his life. He died in '99. And you said that you knew that he was getting older, and so you'd begun writing things down that he said so you wouldn't forget them.
Everything. I did it from then. I did it in A Gift of Time. I've always done that. If the rehearsal is interesting, this page is the script, and beside it I write things down. My copy of Medea says, John Gielgud ate a sandwich. I mean, this God ate a sandwich. Oh, yes. But it seems so sweet to me when I look back now that I was looking across the stage in a rehearsal break, and the fact that this beautiful actor also ate and had a life.
You played a mute servant.
Yes.
Yes.
I had a lot of that. I don't mind. I didn't mind. And then I spent a long time with that play, going upwards, in a sense, into the chorus and so on. And I played Medea in the summer theater once. And the last time I ever played anything in it, I played the nurse to Judith. And that was a physical thing, too. I thought of this nurse like a whipped dog, and I don't ever think I ever stood up. I mean, she was, guarding her and helping her and then telling that story. It's a great, great part. Wonderful thing to do. And the last time I saw Medea, I guess, was with Zoe Caldwell's wonderful Medea and Judith as the nurse. Funny.
John Houseman invited you to the Juilliard to teach.
Yeah.
Those were those amazing years, right?
Yes.
That was when, I guess, he started the drama department
Absolutely.
at Juilliard, and he had
with
that first year
right.
when he had Kevin Kline and Patti LuPone and Norman Snow and Gerald Gutierrez and all of these people. And I remember, because I was working in Chicago then, and
they'd come.
The acting company would come, because after 4 years he couldn't let them go, or at least that was the lore. And so he started the acting company for these people, and they would just go on a bus and play for for me and the Sticks. But you were teaching there.
I was a teacher. Yes, he just decided I would be a teacher. He's one of those strong and fascinating people you meet in your life, and I'm really grateful to him because I loved it. I loved it. And when Garson and I would go to plays, he would say, well, who is it? Meaning, as I was looking at the playbill, who was on the stage that I had something to do with? And I was so proud.
And then you did play with Kevin Kline in Richard, right?
I'm Richard III, and I've been directed by Jerry Gutierrez, who's a brilliant director. And there are names you can't know yet, and you will know, and maybe won't know, which is what I thought was going to happen to me. And each class is like a little acting company, and they go forward and forward. And it still exists. Margot Harley went on with it. And I think it's the only company that does that, goes all over the country.
Are you disappointed that there isn't a national theater? I think I hadn't realized that Shakespeare was really your first professional Shakespeare. Starting in Medea, you must have thought that you were going to be doing a lot more of the classics.
I thought I would play Shakespeare and all the Greek plays, and it never occurred to me no one wanted to see them. I mean, in the sense of making money in the theater. And I studied them all. Edmund Wilson said to me, how can you call yourself an actress? You never played Rebecca West. I said, oh, you should play all of Ibsen if you were an actress. But I had this sort of reputation that I had played them all. I mean, well, I was ready. And of course I taught them all those wonderful plays, and directed wonderful plays at Juilliard. And I don't have any regrets, because when people say, what would you like to do? Yeah. I've always said, even before I knew Edward, I would like to do a part no one's ever done. And it happened.
And when you go to the theater, what do you seek out?
The whole thing.
Do you see everything?
Everything. Yeah. Everything I can. The only difficulty about being in a play is you don't see other plays. Well,
I remember when you were in Death Trap for 1,800 performances. And
more.
More.
5 years.
5 years. Oh, sorry. No, I can't add that up. No. But the stories, you were in the Guinness Book of World Records. I thought, well, I look back now and I think, well, how funny, because then the story was sort of that, that you had good attendance. And the story is so much more than that.
Oh, it is more. It was an amazing experience. It was of its kind, a perfect play. It worked. And being in it, and everyone else moved on or changed. So it wasn't like doing the same thing for 5 years. I acted with an amazing group of actors, and I really loved doing it. And then I was in Equus for 3 years. But you don't know it's going to be 3 years, as indeed you don't know if you play in The Merchant that 4 days later you're out on the street, or Father's Day, which was a wonderful part that I had.
You had one day out.
One day.
One day.
So you don't know. You don't know.
But I've read that you really love the schedule. You love the ritual, the routine.
I do. I like to have to be somewhere. I like to do something that I've been helped to learn how to do. I really love it all. And I can't understand people who do it and don't love it.
It is incomprehensible. Can you tell?
Well, they usually tell you, oh, listen, and I want to say, don't say it, don't say it.
Can you tell from performance?
Oh, when I watch something? No, I think American actors are wonderful.
Yeah.
It's rare to me, and complaining is not part of the work. You just have to do the best you can. After it's all over, if you want to say terrible things, it's all right with me, but not while you're doing it. You have to be for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember there was a wonderful line in Play About the Baby that sort of seemed that Edward had almost written it for you to sort of spoof yourself when you said, a trifle theatrical, I suppose. I suppose,
well,
yes?
I have to fight that because I don't want that to be the expectation. And I've got this dream of a quiet, sensitive, serious person that I play. And someday, Linda, I will. I play old, quiet people in films and television. Yeah.
And
they're not too interesting, but I've done that.
You are Murphy Brown.
Oh, Murphy Brown, I adore it.
Yeah.
That was like theater.
Here's one quick question, which may be unfair to break it to you at the last moment, but if you could change one thing as a woman about the theater, if you could just snap your fingers right now and change something for women in the theater, what would that be?
I can't answer that because I think all sexes have the same problems. And it's when it hits you, a man or a woman, you think, it's because I'm this that I'm unhappy. No. That's just a personal thing. I think women are lucky to be in the theater, and that femininity is such an important part of acting.
Well,
because the audience wants that.
Sure. We're going to have to go. I can't believe it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. On behalf of the League of Professional Theater Women, I'm Linda Weiner, and this has been Women in Theater.